Crime Curious is a true crime podcast that takes an in-depth look into real cases through the lens of a trained investigator and former prosecutor turned judge.
If you are sensitive to expletives, anatomical descriptions, and accurate descriptions of crime scenes, this podcast may not be suitable for you.
Welcome to Crime Curious. I'm Charnell.
I'm Megan.
And I'm Brainbath Jason.
Hey, Brainbath Jason.
Hi.
And Megan.
Hi, Charnell.
How's it going, everybody?
Peachy.
It's a lovely Tuesday afternoon.
It is. It's a Tuesday after work, and here we are in the studio
That's
continuing to work. We're
This is my
hardworking
favorite
crew.
job,
This is
though.
Me
oppressive.
too. I talked to Jason.
It's not oppressive.
I talked to Jason earlier today, and he was a little down, and I said, just wait until this evening. Our friendship raises vibrations. You will feel all better by the evening's end. And he said, I know. You're right.
I do already. I've been here for 10 minutes.
See, it's just we
We're
have
literally-
magical powers.
It's good vibrations.
Perhaps it was the way we warmed up our mouths. And if you've ever seen Pitch Perfect, it's much like
Very
how
similar.
they warmed up on Pitch Perfect
That's
too.
right. Crime Curious mouth calisthenics.
Yes. Oh,
Jealous yet?
right. Everyone.
If this was a video episode, they would be.
Oh, and this is why
Charnel just did a really weird thing with her lips.
this is why we are not on YouTube video, guys, because
Hi, general audience.
it would be a meme. We would end up as memes. For today's episode, we have to thank our Patreon, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. He's been around a real long time.
Yeah, you're old,
And
Chris.
He's accidentally, that is our theme this week, by the way, because
Our theme is You're Really Old, Chris?
No.
Old people.
No, you made that theme.
Old people named Chris.
Our theme is Patreon, Chris, because our
Oh.
bonus episode for this week for the Patreons
Is
was
also Chris?
picked by Chris as well.
Can we'll call this all about Chris?
Well, yeah, and what's really weird is I think he might have been on a theme of his own because they're kind of similar cases as well. But I just so happened to finish the research on the one we're going to do as a bonus this week first, and then I stumbled upon this one that he had requested a long time ago, and was like, "Ooh, this sounds juicy."
Can you give our general audience a sneak preview of what our bonus episode is going to be in case they care to purchase a Patreon membership and check it out today?
Oh, well, I mean, you get 5 of them. So the one that we're doing next is the Beverly Wivel case.
Okay.
Yes, and we've already done one bonus for this month. I mean, it's only June 10th, and we've already released a bonus. So we usually do it each week at 5 bonus episodes when you include the Brain Bath only, which is a fan favorite.
It is.
So, and if you don't want to join Patreon, you can buy them individually, just so you know.
See if it's your thing.
Yeah. You pay. I mean, you end up paying more that way, but that's your own business.
You can purchase individual episodes?
You can.
Sure can.
I should know that.
Yes.
Yeah. I've done it before on other podcasts when I want to listen to just like a series that they may have done on somebody who interested me.
Mm-hmm.
So I eat up things like, wow. I was going to say
ya?
like Dahmer. Like the Dahmer case, and I didn't realize. I eat up the Dahmer case.
Okay.
I'm so sorry, you guys,
thank you,
about
thank
who
you.
I am as a person. But I've paid for content before just to get like the complete.
Well, I've
Somebody
paid
else's
for content
perspective.
before, just
It's
not on
not-
podcast.
Thank you.
Your openness is appreciated on this
Please
podcast.
regale us with a tale of horror
It was
from
dark.
Chris.
It was dark times.
It was, yes. Okay.
He's a nightlight now.
Today, you guys made me go out of my script. Here we are. Okay. Today we're going to remember Dawn Olanick, who was born August 5th, 1964 in Bohemia, New York, on Long Island. Dawn's parents divorced, and she and her brother and sister lived with their mother, from what I can gather. Not a lot of information about Dawn's childhood. Tried to even research on the Book of Faces and see if, family on like anniversaries or anything like that had posted some sort of, tidbits or information, and not a whole lot there. So I'm just going to respect the family's privacy here and basically say I don't have a whole lot about her childhood. The media coverage also is overshadowed by other facts of this case that I'm about to tell you, which I think also kind of left out her early childhood or her childhood from coming into the limelight. So I do know that she lived with her mother, and at the end of her junior year, in June of 1982, just before her 18th birthday, because remember she was born in August, there was an argument between Dawn and her mother, and she was kicked out, never to be seen or heard from again. Some reports said she was asked to leave and never return by her mother's request. Other reports said that they got into an argument and left. So take that information for what it is, and that's all. That's all I have for you. Don't know what the arguments were about. I don't know if Dawn was a troubled teenager. I know that she completed her junior year and was going into her senior year is going to be an 18-year-old.
I think any
girl.
parent with an 18-year-old daughter who's entering her senior year has probably had a argument similar to
Absolutely.
whatever happened that night.
Absolutely. But the sad truth is that she did leave, and she wasn't ever heard from her family again. Much later, a cousin for the family spoke out about how the family had always just hoped that she would reappear someday after living a good, solid life. And I'm not able to tell you, I'm not even able to tell you if she was eventually reported missing or not, even if her mother had tried to report her missing, given the circumstances of her being nearly 18 and having been kicked out. The police in 1982 might not have even been willing to take a missing persons report.
Well, was she kicked out or did she leave?
I read it two different ways. There was an argument and she was kicked out, and that there was an argument, and at her mother's request, she was asked to leave, and she did.
Okay, so I could see where there's some time that would go by where maybe she's like, okay, well, maybe I thought she'd come back by now.
Uh-huh. Right, and we haven't heard
But I
from
technically
her.
told her to get the hell out of the house. So
Yes.
there may have been a delay if there was ever a report.
And I'm not certain that there ever was. I never found information, but that doesn't mean there wasn't. It just means it wasn't being reported by the media at the time. Part of the reason is because, as we're going to find out, she may have been a missing person at that point in time, but life goes on in Bohemia, New York. Okay. Meanwhile, in Blairstown, New Jersey, which is approximately 120 miles or a 2-hour and 40-minute by car ride away, a gravedigger named George Keiss was working at the Blairstown Cemetery called Cedar Ridge Cemetery when he discovered a body at the north end of the premises in a heavily wooded area near a steep embankment leading down to a stream. The body was found lying on her back, was a female, and badly decomposed due to the hot and humid temperatures in the middle of July in New Jersey, as it was exposed to the elements. The face and head had been badly beaten, so it was unrecognizable. And due to decomposition, an eye color could not even be determined. This also complicated the autopsy in terms of the actual time of death. Therefore, it was given as anywhere from 3 days to 3 weeks prior to the discovery. And the age range was determined to be a victim of anywhere between the ages of 14 and 18 years old. The victim was determined to be that of a white female who was wearing a red pullover short-sleeve shirt, a peasant-style skirt with a peacock print on the bottom hem was found lying on top of the victim's legs. No undergarments were on the victim or found in the vicinity. In addition, the victim was found with no socks, shoes, or stockings. She was only 5'2" and 115 pounds. A cross necklace was tangled in her hair, and 2 earrings were in her left ear. Her arms showed extensive defensive wounds, indicating a heavy struggle.
All right, so she tried to fight her attacker.
Mm-hmm. There was red nail polish found on the right hand only, and she had no known surgical scars, distinct birthmarks, or tattoos. Now, scars or marks on the head, face area would not have been known due to the condition of the body. The 2 front teeth were slightly darker than the other teeth, and her appendix and tonsils were intact. Forensic anthropologists determined that the victim was not pregnant and had never given birth and was most likely murdered someplace else and then dumped in
that
that
makes sense.
site in the cemetery.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing you're going to have potentially there, and I don't know if in that time frame they would have done entomology, but to determine a more like cleaned up timeline is the bug activity.
Right.
Yes, exactly. And this is quite a small town.
Right.
So Blairstown. So I'm not sure. I was wondering that myself. Like, had we done any of that? It is, 1982. The toxicology did not reveal any traces of drugs or alcohol, but this was also not entirely conclusive because of the time lapse between the death and the discovery of the body and the decomposition. The residents of Blairstown, New Jersey, did not have any missing persons matching this description. Investigators attempted to identify her through fingerprints, but police and national records failed to yield any positive results.
And just to be clear, whoever dumped her there literally dumped her by a cemetery because there's a gravedigger out there doing his job, and he's like, oh, that one's not where it's supposed to be.
Right.
Yep.
He finds her at the bottom of was it kind of like a hilly?
Yeah, it was like a steep embankment that led towards a stream, but it was a heavily wooded area. Not exactly concealed. I mean, really not.
But probably
not
no
hidden.
reason for anyone to be back there other than him doing his job at the top of the hill.
Probably mowing too, like,
Yeah,
you know
grounds.
what I mean? Yes, doing all of that.
They didn't make a big effort to hide her.
No.
It was just dump it here.
Correct. The first lead investigator in this case, Lieutenant Eric Krantz, actually named her Princess Doe. And this turns out to be a really great thing for her instead of just naming her
Jane
Doe.
Doe.
And there's a quote from him where he said, I got tired of writing the name Jane Doe. He said, there's a million Jane Does. They're all in the cemetery, and they all have unmarked graves. I just wanted to give her some personality, some identity, so that's why I named her Princess Doe. A composite sketch of what the best we could determine she would have looked like was circulated to the press in the hopes that someone would be able to identify her. Despite their efforts, no one recognized her. They even made some with various different hair colors, just in case she had changed her hair color, right?
Yeah, because I find it weird still that she only has red nail polish on one hand.
Also,
It's odd.
How long was she missing, or not?
Well, she was
known?
found July 15th, 1982, and she left at the end of June. We're talking a matter of weeks, okay? Because, I mean, and obviously, spoiler alert, we all know this is Dawn, right? But yes, she left at the end of June and then was discovered July 15th.
But we don't know when she was killed and then later
Right.
placed there.
Right.
Because they said anywhere from
between
a few days.
3 days to
and
3 weeks.
And the 3 weeks puts her right up to her disappearance. Or to
Absolutely.
her walking away.
I mean, it truly, yes. If it was 3 weeks, then she was killed pretty immediately after leaving her family's home.
This
Which
makes
explains
me-
why there was absolutely no contact after she left. I'm more likely to believe that she that she was murdered very shortly after leaving home.
But on an initial suspect list, having her family explain that she left because of an argument, they're going to be suspects. Oh, okay, so you had an argument and then no one's seen her since,
Right.
and she potentially has been dead the same amount of time it's been since you kicked her out of the house. So
Yeah, but you've got to remember, at this point in time, no one knows this is Dawn.
Right.
This is Princess Doe.
I'm talking about later, assuming we're going to figure out that this is Dawn.
Well-
Princess is Dawn.
It's a long time coming. You just wait. This is a really interesting case. And remember, this is 2.5 hours away from where Dawn left her house on Long Island. This is a small town in New Jersey. We don't have national, there wasn't the national databases that there are now in terms of jurisdictions for looking for missing persons. But that was why I was looking to see if there were any missing person cases filed on her to where they could possibly have went down that track to try to match her. And I just couldn't find that information. I don't know that they really reported necessarily reported her missing, or that maybe they tried and the police just weren't interested in taking the report and making
because
it.
she was almost 18 or 18 and she was kicked
She
out.
left voluntarily.
Yeah.
She ran away.
She's not missing.
She voluntarily left.
How many times have we covered those cases, especially in the 70s and 80s, where the police just simply weren't interested?
Because she's not really missing. She left or you kicked her out.
And she's an adult.
She doesn't want to be found.
I really believe that giving her a unique, unidentified persona like this helped to ensure that this case, which does go very cold, did not fall through the cracks. This and the residents of Blairstown, they pooled their money to pay for a proper burial of Princess Doe, and George Keiss, the gravedigger who found her, dug her grave. They paid for a tombstone that read, quote, "Princess Doe, missing from home, dead among strangers, remembered by all, July 15th, 1982, which was the day she was remembered or
It's like
found.
really nice of this town.
Yes, like this is just a small family community, you know, and that's how they knew, like, she didn't belong to any of them, so that's why they put missing from home, like identifying her as not a resident here. In 1983, around the 1-year anniversary of the discovery of Princess Doe, HBO did a documentary called Princess Doe, with footage of her funeral that Blairstown gave her, and as much information as possible, even with the composite sketches, to see if they could get any more information. Nothing came of it. Blairstown also gathered for a memorial at her grave in the years to come, on the anniversary of the day that they found her. It sounds like a really amazing town,
These
by the way.
are like exceptionally dedicated people who are clearly traumatized that a young deceased woman was found in their town. Right?
Yep.
Like they're having a hard time processing this.
Yep.
And why isn't anyone looking for her? Because you come to all kinds of conclusions in your own head.
Well, and remember, they only have the information that she's somewhere between the ages of 14 and 18.
Yeah.
These residents are like, that is someone's baby.
That's a little girl.
I mean, she's only 5'2", 115 pounds. What if that's somebody's 14-year-old, right? Like they don't know. They don't know her story. And there's something else really significant about this case. Princess Doe was the very first unidentified person submitted to the National Crime Information Center database called NCIC.
No kidding? Mm-hmm. She's the first NCIC?
She is. And this is the FBI's index of missing persons, fugitive criminal records, and other criminal justice information. She is the very first entry into NCIC. Yeah. And this case goes cold without investigators even realizing that it was cold. And what I mean by this is that for many years, Princess Doe was thought to be Diane Janice Dye, a missing teenager from San Jose, California, who vanished on July 30th, 1979. This theory was propagated by several law enforcement officials in the state of New Jersey, who went as far as to hold a press conference identifying Diane as Princess Doe.
But when was she found?
83.
Well,
82.
Diana wasn't found.
No, but when was Princess found?
She was found July 15th, 1982. This person went missing July 30th, 1979.
So she'd been missing for 3 years.
Yep. And she was from San Jose, California. And
I'm sorry. It's my problem that I'm having here and why we needed to map the 3 years is that isn't enough decomp for 3 years exposed.
well, no.
Even kept inside.
But she was missing that long.
She
They
was
don't know
missing.
I
Right.
see.
So
I had to
saying
wrap
she
my head around
died.
it. So she's been missing for that long, but clearly
Right.
died within the last 3 days to
Right.
3 weeks.
For sure.
Sorry, I had to process that out loud.
Yep,
It's
that's
a long
okay.
day. It's okay.
It has. Everyone understands we do this after a long day of work.
It's because I already have preconceived notions, so I have to get
Right.
my investigator bias out of the way.
Yep. So they, the New Jersey police had a lot of reason to believe that this was Diane. Okay. I held a press conference identifying her as Princess Doe. However, Lieutenant Eric Krantz, the one who gave her the Princess Doe name, the original lead investigator, he maintained that he did not believe that Diane Dye was a viable candidate for Princess Doe's identity. Lieutenant Krantz's feelings were shared by Diane's family and investigators in California, who were particularly not right PC word. They weren't real impressed by the conduct of the New Jersey law enforcement at the time. Okay, so we've got jurisdictions playing whose dick's bigger than who.
Sometimes that doesn't go away.
And right, and so
It's mine.
They're not
okay.
I don't argue that my dick's bigger than yours.
They're not real convinced. The California law enforcement's like, no. New Jersey is like, yes. And even Lieutenant Krantz is like, no, this doesn't fit. But for a long time, Princess Doe was being identified as Diane. So this Princess Doe case is actually very cold, and they don't realize it because they think it's Diane. In 2003, however, yes, I said 2003, we went from 1982 to 2003. Princess Doe's DNA was compared with a DNA sample from Diane's mother, Patricia, and it was conclusively determined that Princess Doe was not Diane Dye.
Why would they wait 20 years for that?
Well, we didn't have the technology, my friend.
So it was just...
Not for it to be conclusively determined.
It was just evolving into that family DNA piece in the early 2000s.
Really?
Where you could actually test a family member. I mean, that's how we've solved a bunch of cold cases now, right? Not because it links to the defendant, but because it links to like their first cousin twice removed or something. Mm-hmm. So they can at least tell, that was not your daughter because there's just no biological indicators at all.
Right.
Well, now I just feel old. Like, I feel like that was something like in the 90s.
No.
Right, but no, it's more recent.
Yeah.
DNA testing technology started to evolve in the 90s. They were taking samples and they could compare blood types in the 80s, but the technology for actual DNA strands started evolving in the 90s. And then using familial DNA started to be deconstructed and evolved in the early 2000s. And today it's solving all kinds of shit.
It is, but food for thought. There are still a group of defense attorneys and individuals who have issues with this new science, who are validly getting things thrown out of court or getting not guilties on cases where we know exactly through science who the person is, who the perpetrator is, but they're able to successfully convince juries or get this evidence thrown out because it's just not a highly established science yet. Like, we know it's true.
Yes, right, exactly. DNA does not lie.
And in some cases, you're getting convictions on them, but it's a big thing that's coming up in the judicial trainings that we're having in terms of what judges will let in as evidence and what kind of experts on this field and technology you need, because it's that new.
And it's all based on math. Because when you look at, like you're a 50% genetic match to your sister, right? Because you guys are not twins. And so it then...
Unless you ask that one waiter in Canada.
Yes, that thought you guys were twins.
They didn't check back then for
That's
DNA.
True. Right. So it's all done mathematically. And it's very complicated. And I can see why... Honestly, I can see why some people can't wrap their head around it because they simply can't comprehend the math and the science of it. So then they just don't want to believe it.
Right.
So, because we sat in on a symposium about it, and it was fascinating.
The guru. This doc is the one that really he's the one that solved the Golden Gate Killer case. So, and he spoke at on our crime cruise that we went on.
Yeah, it really was fascinating information. Even for as much as they tried to bring it down to a easier to digest level for the common...
Dumb it down, man.
Yeah, the common reader, the common intelligence level of humans, and it's still complicated.
But of note in this case, they're not using this as any type of evidentiary proof. They're using it just as a rule out, like, not your daughter... Clearly, you are biologically related to the victim in this case, and so then you can move on. You don't. This type of part of the science there, it's really not being used for court purposes.
No, it was just truly sorry, but this isn't your daughter. There is a zero match here. So simultaneously, while investigators are convinced that Princess Doe is Diana Dye, some evidence comes forward in way of a confession to the killing of Princess Doe in Blairstown. The evidence first comes forward in 1999 when Donna Kinlaw was arrested in California for attempting to commit welfare fraud by using the name Elena, who was a real person that was a Long Island native, okay? Donna gave police information about a murder that her husband committed of a woman named Linda. And then she gave them information about 2 other unknown females who remained unidentified.
So her husband has just disclosed to his lovely wife that he's committed homicide 3 times over, or was
It'll make sense in a second.
Okay.
The thing is, Arthur, he was known and suspected at the time to be running a prostitution ring.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And we have a young lady who has been either kicked out of or walked away from home. And sometimes the oldest profession in the book is the only way one can sustain.
Well, it'll surprise you, Judge Megan.
Okay.
Something that...
Here she is, jumping to conclusions again.
Right?
I'm just going to sit back.
Something
being scolded.
that his wife Donna knew and took part of was that her husband ran a prostitution ring. So when he would bring these young girls home, it was nothing new to her. Okay.
She wanted to be Miss Kitty also.
And she did. And turns out she's not real great at it, because the minute that she could make a deal to get out of her welfare fraud and, possibly any other things, she's gonna.
I'm going to need to throw my husband right under the fucking bus right now because I don't want to go to jail for welfare fraud.
Right.
Yeah.
True love.
Here's the thing, though. Her confessions do lead them both behind bars. She does time, too. Not nearly as long as Arthur.
Accessory?
Yeah. Like, she's still in trouble. They went in this case. I'm trying not to digress from Princess Doe and Dawn. So maybe someday in the future we can cover the other victims as well. But Arthur he was convicted of killing other women. There was a woman named Lisa. Okay. And then there was an unidentified woman. He admits to killing Princess Doe too. But this is where it gets sticky, especially from a legal standpoint. Donna gave testimony that she was with Arthur in the cemetery and witnessed him commit a murder. Another report states that Donna knew that in July 1982, her husband brought home a teenage girl, left home, and returned without her. So she gives 2 different confessions, essentially.
The second one makes more sense since we know she didn't die. We don't think she died at the cemetery.
Exactly. However,
she could have died in his car, though.
Yes. And remember, there's another unidentified woman. So to me, I'm thinking, okay, she was there when Dawn was murdered. When Princess Doe was murdered, she was there. And then there was another time, that other unidentified girl that they didn't know the name of, okay? Perhaps that was the one that he brought home and then never returned with. Either way,
Arthur's a serial killer.
he is a problem. Yeah,
He's a problem.
Definitely a problem.
Got some quirks.
And he disposed of his clothing and cleaned his vehicle, okay, afterward. And he threatened Donna, claiming that if she did not attend her job, like if you do not straighten up, be the housewife, and go to work like you're supposed to, that he would take her life as he did the girls that he brought home.
Oh, he probably would have.
Oh, I agree. Now, here's the problem. There is a lack of cooperation in terms of getting Arthur Kinlaw charged for Princess Doe's murder, because not only do they not have, they can't positively identify. Both Donna and Arthur claim to have spent some time with this woman, but do not know her name. So they can't connect it with anyone. The stories match up, and he really is seemingly like he's convicted and confessed to the Lisa murder, okay, and another one, but not to Princess Doe. But he has made the confession, but they can't charge him. So Lieutenant Stephen Spears, who worked the case as a member of the Warren County Prosecutor's Office, he's now retired, of course, stated that Arthur Kinlaw did claim responsibility for Princess Doe's death, but there was no physical evidence to confirm that, and without the identity of Princess Doe, there was no way of connecting the dots of putting her in the place that he could have been at the same time. You see what I'm getting at? Like, yes, we have.
I disagree to some extent in that in part of his wife's confession, she indicated that she was there in that spot where they dumped the body, and that's corroborative because were there other bodies laying around down there?
Well, what I don't know and what I was looking for was there another unknown female, not necessarily in Blairstown, but found in another cemetery?
You know,
Was that his MO?
That's a great defense attorney argument. What cemetery was it? I would have had her take me there.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Drive me to where the last place you saw her before Arthur dumped her was.
I truly think that for the law enforcement officers that were working the case when he admitted to killing Lisa, were so focused on Lisa and getting the information on Lisa that they didn't get more information on these unknown females that didn't have names to them, right? They're not as human. So in 2005, he's sentenced, guys, in like 2003. Okay? He's behind bars.
But not for Princess Doe.
No, not for Princess Doe. For murder, okay, to which he got 20 years to life and could first become eligible for parole should they choose to grant it in 2018. Okay?
Okay, which was a couple of years ago.
Yeah. A couple of years ago. It is longer than you think.
7.
I know.
It's like, it does feel like a couple of years ago.
So when you first brought the case up, and that's so close to when I was born, I did have to wrap around in my mind that was over 40 years ago.
Right. In 2000.
So yes, the science was antiquated, Jason, 40 years ago.
In 2005, Arthur Kinlaw was serving his sentence in a New York prison for those other 2 murder charges that he was convicted of in 2000, thanks to his wife's testimonies and other evidence, of course. So, according to the New York Times, Kinlaw wrote a letter to authorities 5 years into his sentence to confess of Princess Doe's murder in Blairstown. So now they have Donna, who says that there was a woman in Blairstown, in a cemetery. And now here he is writing his confession to Princess Doe, Blairstown, connecting the dots, okay? Investigators took a formal statement from him, and he also provided details about the crime that convinced authorities that he was, indeed, Princess Doe's murderer, but they still didn't charge him because they're still trying to find out her identity. As advancements in DNA technology happen and the process of identifying Princess Doe begin, big time in 2007. So in 2012, her case was featured on America's Most Wanted with an updated composite sketch, and an eyelash and tooth sample was tested to determine through isotope analysis that her heritage was American. They're trying to bring as much information forward because they still don't have any family members coming forward and saying, we think this is our daughter, our sibling, our whatever. Okay?
Right.
So they're trying to bring all the light to the case that they can. Then her skeletal remains were actually exhumed thanks to a grant in 2020. And it was her DNA is given to Astria Forensics for extraction and analysis. Now, this Astria Forensics is a company that specializes in genome sequencing from degraded remains. Its mission is to assist in genetic genealogy and law enforcement investigations to be able to solve cold cases. Her DNA profile was updated and submitted to Innovative Forensic Investigations, which created a genealogical profile from her DNA sample. Princess Doe was finally identified in April 2022 as Dawn Olanick, or Olnick, whatever vernacular you want to use, a 17-year-old from West Babylon, Bohemian, New York, Long Island. Investigators were able to confirm the information with Dawn's brother, who gave the statement that his sister left home at about 17 years old and had been missing since 1982. Then Dawn's sister also provided a DNA sample to compare with Princess Doe, and based on the mitochondrial DNA profile, Princess Doe was confirmed to be Dawn. She was formally announced on July 15th, 2022, the 40th anniversary of her discovery in Blairstown Cemetery. They officially went public and announced her name as Dawn Rita Olanick. Almost 2 decades after his confession, authorities were finally able to issue a warrant of arrest for Arthur Kinlaw in the murder of Dawn Olanick. Yes, he was still serving his 20 to life sentence and had not been released on parole in 2018. And we kind of get the whole story here. Arthur Kinlaw attempted to lure Dawn into prostitution, but she refused, and Arthur killed her. He then drove and left her body at the cemetery, where she was eventually discovered by George Keiss. So it wasn't a situation of she went into prostitution because she was no longer at home. It was that she did not want to be a part of the prostitution ring, and she wasn't allowed a choice. And so he murdered her because and I'm assuming she knew too much, could identify him as running a prostitution ring. And so if she wasn't willing to join, then you're going to die.
Out, for sure.
And excuse me, I suspect that was probably the likely story for the other ladies as well. They weren't willing to join. Arthur Kinlaw remains imprisoned at the Sullivan Correctional Facility in Fallsburg, New York. Investigators are actually still trying to piece together like her movements in the time leading up to her death. But what is very, I think, profound about this case is that it was the very first case that was entered into the NCIC system, and that happened on June 30th, 1983, and the case remained in the system until July 15th, 2022, 40 years to the date of the discovery of her body, and it has now been removed. So investigators did not give up after 40 years, and so the very first case from NCIC system is now removed.
That's
solved.
amazing. I want to give a shout out too to Astria Technology. If you go on astriaforensics.com, they have a list of a number of cases that they've assisted in solving. I actually don't see hers on there, but you know what you'll find interesting about this in terms of the genome sequencing? This is the same company that solved the Somerton Man case from Australia, Australia's oldest cold case. This is the guy that was found on the beach but dead, but there was all kinds of spy theories.
Yeah, we've covered that case.
I covered.
Yeah.
I actually presented that one,
Did
believe
you?
it or not.
Yeah, I knew.
That's why I
one
remembered
of us did.
him. And so they have a long list on their website of individuals whose cases that they've solved, and they really are bringing attention to this as specifically billing themselves to assist investigators and law enforcement. And what they specifically say on here, which is really interesting, just so you note, is that their mission is to help empower law enforcement and genetic genealogy investigators in their mission to solve cold cases. That's what they do. So I dig this company. I hope they don't do anything to disappoint me or get in trouble like other corporations do.
Right.
Is it strange, or does anyone else find it strange, that this family member waited 40 years to make an effort about his missing sister?
Well, I don't know that. I don't know that he waited.
I think we're missing information on that part.
No, remember, they reached out to him. They put her DNA through the sequencing. They reached out to
No, he means it's weird that no one reported her or came forward like with this missing girl, 20 years later.
And for all we know, even so much as into their adulthood, maybe they had. But
they couldn't have been going like since the early 2000s, I guess. Be like, hey, I heard about this DNA stuff.
But
my sister's been missing forever. Do you have any unclaimed bodies that I could maybe compare myself to?
I don't know. There's hundreds of thousands of missing people. I don't know that, that if you have a missing relative that you can just go and say, hey, unless, you volunteer your DNA to like 23andMe and have it put in a database like that they could potentially match. But they truly had to have had someone's DNA to have reached out and then it was corroborated by the sisters. And a cousin, in the beginning of the case, I had told you that a cousin, after the fact, after this had been solved, went to the news and said, we all just kind of hoped that she would show up someday. Yeah. I don't know that they really wanted to wrap their head around the belief that she was necessarily gone, something nefarious had befallen her. And I don't know the family dynamics without knowing, other than knowing their parents were divorced, knowing if this was like, well, she was really stubborn, so I bet she probably did say fuck you and leave. I don't know. I would like to assume that I'm sure there was a missing persons eventually filed and all this stuff, and it just got missed because it was so far away from home. It was, over 2.5 hours away.
But again, a missing persons case isn't going to take priority when it's reported, maybe even a year down the line and say, my daughter up and walked out one day after an argument. I haven't heard from her in a year and she's an adult. Yeah. Or I kicked her out of the house. I feel terrible about it, but I can't get in touch with her. I have no idea where she is. I mean, I don't know that a lot of people would go to law enforcement and say, hey, I kicked my kid out and I never heard from her again.
Right. And there's no cell
would
phones.
It doesn't sound very good.
No. No, and I openly do not have more information on if the family was actively searching for her.
That's a piece we'll just never know. But in terms of the genome sequencing solving cases, this is just yet another one. So thanks, Chris.
I love it. Thank you, Chris, because I love knowing that she was the first case ever put into NCIC. And then she's been removed. It's been solved. And that's amazing. And
that's a hell of an aging report. Case number 1 has been sitting there for over 40 years.
I know. Oh, also, I did read a report that her tombstone was going to be updated with her name
from Princess Doe
and her date of birth with her date that she was found.
I almost hope that in parentheses they keep Princess Doe for the townspeople that have loved and honored her memory for 40 some years.
Well, that's the other thing. They held a really big thing on her 40th on the 40th year. I mean, that's where they went completely public with her name. There was a big ceremony at the cemetery that was attended by over 1,000 people in Blairstown.
Someone needs to give this is the most amazing town ever. The most empathetic town that must exist in the New Jersey area.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Either that or New Joyceans are just really amazing people, and we should make a trip there.
And we should just know this.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah. Yes.
I hope they all sound like Ben Affleck.
For sure.
He's Boston. Never mind. Wrong town. I was thinking,
we're from
I'm sorry.
Michigan.
Let me apologize. I was thinking Jersey Girl, the movie. So that's where I went. That's why I went Jersey with it, even though he's clearly a Boston guy. So
can I give you guys a brain bath?
Yeah.
That I heard on the way.
We expect it.
That's true. I guess I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you one. It's fresh in my mind just because I heard it on the way over to the studio. And it makes me concerned for humans and how have we evolved this far?
I don't know.
Or has it been dumb luck?
Yes.
And it also made me think we just blindly trust that humans build, I don't know, airplanes and cars, really, without
safely?
Error. Yeah, safely. And when you hear this story, you're going to go, I question the intelligence of humanity in general.
I do it every day.
As soon as you leave the house.
Yeah, as soon as you leave.
Sometimes I question it before I leave the house, and it's me.
Well, of
course. Did I just do that?
Of course. We all have our moments, right?
Do you know how many times I've forgotten there's a bottom step on my stairs? I mean, come on, people.
That bottom step has gotten
a lot of... Are you walking with your eyes closed?
I'm walking with...
Trying to use the force?
I am walking with purpose. I've walked those steps for, 1,000 times, and I have, but somehow I have forgotten the bottom step.
I see people do that a lot.
Times. Yeah.
My sister actually broke her ankle in a real gnarly way doing that same exact thing. Granted, she was wearing her husband's slippers, which are 5 times too large for her.
And I would be far more likely to hurt myself in a pair of house shoes than I would 5-inch stilettos. Because I walk very carefully and with purpose in stilettos. With slippers, it's
all willy-nilly.
I tramp around like I'm a house cat.
Yeah, yeah. No, she really, really did a number on her ankle. Had to have bad surgery and everything. No. Yeah.
Okay, so regale us with a tale that will make us question humanity.
What do you want to do?
Regale?
Tell us a story about what a person who will make us question.
What do you want to do?
People.
As if any of us needed more reasons to question humanity. But the new TSA regulation that you have to have a real ID in the United States. Okay.
Or a passport.
Yeah. It has to have a gold star in the corner.
No.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what the real ID is. Do you want to know? TSA has had to put out a formal statement. Okay, so this means this is how much this has happened, that TSA has had to put out a formal statement that you cannot use your Costco card just because it has a gold star in your name on it.
I actually trust Costco to know who I am.
They're
more
stricter
than
than the
TSA.
airport when you try to get out of there.
Dude, you can't even add someone to your membership
No.
now
You
without
cannot.
paying extra money. Not even my husband.
How many
No.
people? How many people go to Costco without an ID and try and get in there?
You're not fucking
Like-
getting in.
No.
You're not getting in. You could trick TSA, but you aren't.
Right.
You aren't tricking the 80-year-old
No.
at Costco checking IDs.
That's her one job.
No
Her
shit.
one job. That TSA's got a lot.
I just need some Kirkland vodka. That's all I need.
So if we just get some of those shiny gold stars, I can slap one on my ID.
That's what I was pretending to do while you were telling
I
the
saw.
story, is peeling gold stars
Yeah.
off and
Yeah.
just sticking them to Jason.
No. Apparently, it's very specifically Costco IDs that already have a gold star and your picture and your name, and people are trying to pass that off as their gold IDs. And imagine this: TSA is not accepting it,
Weird.
and they're rejecting
Detroit
it
would.
and telling people, no, you have to get an actual real ID through the state that you live in. People, an actual driver's license, your Costco card cannot be accepted.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't
that's-
have to be a driver's license. It can be personal
be your
identification. Also, you can get a personal
Right,
ID
right.
card with the real ID.
That's what I
piece
meant.
In it.
That's what I meant
But
was identification, not driver's license.
Just use your passport, unless you can't get one, and that's a problem and a struggle for a lot of people right now as well.
Right.
So,
But you can't use your Costco card to get a passport either, just so you know.
well, I think that that's appropriate and also bullshit. I mean, I basically had to give DNA to get a card.
But do you know the amount of people that are like, I'll show these sons of bitches.
Like,
I'm going to present my Costco
Walking
card.
up to your gate with some confidence, be
Right.
like, slap it down like an Uno card, be like, there you
Yes.
go, motherfucker.
They're gonna scan it, man. They're gonna scan
They
it, and they're
are.
gonna be like, "So the bad news is you're not going to flight, but the good news is you have $50 off your next bag of dog food."
Right.
God,
Sorry about your missed vacation, but maybe you could stop at Costco on your way home.
You
Because
can.
that's the only place that this card's going to get you into.
you know why? Costco has really good travel packages and all-inclusive packages to book trips with. So if
they
people
really?
are, yeah.
Does Sam's Club? I'm a Sam's Club member.
They do. They do as well, but Costco's is better. They have like a whole travel agency thing. No, not meaning to plug Costco
Yeah.
too much because they don't sponsor us.
I was
but
just going to say, freaking sponsor us, Costco.
I can see somebody like, I bought my vacation through Costco. They need to see the ID. Here's my Costco
No.
card because I bought my. I am justifying dumb people. I do it every day.
Oh, God.
I can't.
This
You
is why I
can't.
don't want to be a judge officially. I mean, I judge people
Right.
all day, don't get me wrong. But officially, I have my own gavel that just goes off in my head, but I don't want a real one. No.
When you are used to hearing the weirdest excuses in the entire world, I'm not saying you ever believe them, but at some point in time, you do look at people and think, I can see why you would think that.
Yes. Oh, that's a wonderful statement. Jay and I actually do that daily in our job
I
for
can
sure.
see
I
why you
understand how
would
you
think
got
that.
to that point.
Yep.
But
However,
we still can't lock 5-year-olds in the closet.
we can't.
We can't.
Nope.
Not
No.
even for 5 minutes because it's like a 5-minute timeout because it's in a closet, right?
Nope, still
Like,
can't.
Okay.
No. You still can't duct tape a kid to a
Exactly,
high
just
We
chair.
clarify.
we have to put that shit in writing just so they know it's real.
Yeah.
See, this
Yeah.
is like,
Why does that have to be
caution,
in print?
McDonald's coffee is hot. Why
Right.
does it
Yeah.
have to be in print?
Because some dumb shit's like, no, this makes sense. I'll do this. No, you really should have done that. Now we have to spell it out for everyone else.
Right.
Yeah.
Also can't duct tape kids into their high chair.
Well, this is
Just
why
so you
I
know.
feel like eventually we're going to go to the supermarket and in the produce section by the cucumbers, it's going to say for oral use only.
Yes. Yes, you're right.
The
Honestly-
doctors, ERs would appreciate
I'm
this.
actually going to put my other sticker on it.
What? Which one?
Rectal use only.
He's
Just go
over in the
lay-
thermometer
just go
section.
slapping those on
In
everything.
with the suppositories and the he's sticking those on the
The
cucumber.
asparagus,
Right.
rectal use only, the
Everything, yeah.
cucumbers. The eggplant's really what you're going for first.
Anything
Yeah.
that
Oh
shouldn't.
God.
That shouldn't be. Hey, we don't kink stinks, but we hope that you keep it curious.
We don't stink kinks.
What'd I say?
You don't kink stinks.
I'm so glad. I'm not even,
I just kind of let it
Y'all-
go because I wasn't even sure. I'm like, did she mean that?
I am not going to even edit that out.
No.
That came out so fluently.
It did.
And
It
so
was-
confidently.
It was in your brain, babe.
It was meant to be.
Yeah.
And you know what? Either way, we do not stink kinks
We
and
don't.
we don't kink
Kink
stinks.
Okay.
But we do hope that you keep it curious.
And keep listening.
Till next time.
Bye-bye.